We are live. We are here with Jo today. Hello to everyone who will be watching, presumably in the replays. So, Jo, we're just going to jump right in. Please introduce yourself and tell us what it is that you do.
I'm Jo Mitchelhill. I am a parenting coach, and I work with parents who may be having challenging behaviours with their children, teenagers, and help them find positive ways, positive solutions to move that forward and to have a more harmonious family lifestyle, which I think we all kind of, we want to have with our families. We don't want to be sort of arguing all the time. So that's where I support families.
Amazing. Can you tell us how you got to doing this?
Well, it's kind of been, I guess, if I look back over my life, it's sort of been a journey. I think most people, you sort of talk to them about their journey. It's probably started right back when I was young. Sort of came from a family where my dad died when we were very young. I was one of four. It was quite difficult for mum for lots of reasons with us. And I think that sort of shaped the person who I became as an adult, and sort of the things that I went through as a kid sort of shaped how I saw that I would like to help people, particularly adults, as I got older. So I was a teacher for a long time, a primary school teacher, and worked in all sorts of areas and all sorts of schools. With all sorts of, people from different backgrounds. And I worked a lot. I got on really well with my parents. I always made sure that I found time for my parents to sit down and talk with them and find out, what was going on, if there were any issues, if there were any challenges at home. And I always found that rapport was really important, because that helped. If the children, are struggling at home, then that comes into the classroom with learning. So that was kind of, I think, from pretty much day one of being a teacher, I was always sort of taught at Teachers College and with any of my supervising teachers that, it's about talking with the parents. And I found that really rewarding, because you could see changes over the year with the children. So I did that for about 20 years, I think, give or take a few years here and there. And my husband and I, also during sort of that time, we became foster carers, and we worked with predominantly teenagers, but we've worked with children of all sort of age ranges. But a majority of the children that stayed with us for any long period of time were teenagers. So often children that had been in the system for a while, for many years. So they had sort of what they call high-end needs. So they were children that obviously had different, quite a few foster caring placements, and for whatever reasons they'd broken down, and they came and stayed with us, and they all pretty much stayed with us until they went into semi-independent living. So we worked quite a lot with teenagers, and I do quite like teenagers, actually. They do make me laugh. They do stress me a little bit, hence why I have to colour my hair now. So that's kind of where, and I've always had a really keen interest, I guess, in human behavior, in how we kind of interact with each other and what things sort of trigger us or lead us to behave in certain ways. So I guess throughout all of my life, I've always been quite an observer of people. I do like to sit in coffee shops and observe people and watch things happen and pan out and whatnot. So yeah, it's quite a good part. Well, obviously I haven't been able to do it for quite some time this year, but I'm finding myself a little bit more and more enjoying that, sort of being able to sort of watch people. So yeah, so it's always been a part of who I am. But I guess as I've gotten older and sort of become a parent myself, I've realised how much support isn't out there for parents. And I'm not talking about, there's obviously different levels of challenges, isn't there, as a parent? But even just having somewhere where people can just come and go, you know what, today, oh my God, they just wouldn't do this, they wouldn't do that. Or, I feel like sticking pins in my eyes today because of, just that, where you can just let sort of vent, and no one's going to think any less of you, because let's be honest, it's one of those jobs where no one gives you an induction period, no one gives you a manual, no one tells you, you know, that I don't know, that they're going to screen from the minute you get them home to the time they're 18 and they leave, or something like that. You know, there's all sorts of things that are, you know, as a parent, are new to us all. And any other job, we kind of get the opportunity to go, I don't like this, I'm going to go find somewhere else. But for us as parents, we kind of go, well, there you go, there's your baby, best of luck then, off you go. You know, and if we're lucky to have, and some people are very lucky to have that supportive family or friendship network around them. But if you don't, where do you go? You know, so that's kind of where my journey sort of got me to this point now, is like, I want to be that, or have that community where parents can come and just say, you know, things are going great, but this thing here, just, I'm not quite sure how to navigate that. Or actually, do you know what, it's all coming crashing down around me and I just need someone to talk to. So that's where I've gotten, or how I've gotten to where I am today. So.
Amazing. So you do the coaching, and with regards to, I mean, like, I was going to say a support group for parenting, but it is like, it's what you said, it's a support, like a community. Do you have something that that, you know, would you be able to send me links to some that you have, or that you know of?
Yeah, I've got my own group, Facebook group. Yeah, that Parenting Without Prejudice, it's called, where it is a non-judgmental community where people can just come together and ask questions.
I wasn't sure if that was your group or not. I forgot. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's okay. That's fine. Yeah, so I have that. Yeah, so we have that group that people can request to join. It's a private group, so anything that's shared in there stays in there. You know, that's sort of very much one of the rules, is it's a safe space where people can just come and talk about stuff. Because sometimes, even if we have, you know, that supportive network of people, sometimes people just want to,
so many opinions and criticisms and whatever, and like and judgments. Oh my God.
Exactly. That's it. You know, everyone's got a way of doing something, and there's always going to be someone who's done it better or bigger, or, you know, is amazing, and you're doing it wrong. And that is never really helpful for us as parents, you know, because every child is an individual, every child is different, every parent is different, all of our stories and backgrounds are different. So we don't need judgmental advice. We just need someone to go, you know what, sometimes we just need someone to go, it's okay, it's all right, they do that. You know, they drink out the dog bowl, it's all good. You know?
My son did that yesterday. He poured the dog's water into the back of his tricycle. There's like a little like thing, and then he was slapping in it, and then he put his head, and I was like, no, what are you doing?
Yeah, you know, they do. Our daughter did that. We were still fostering when she was born, and we had a new social worker come with our old social worker, and she was just crawling, and she crawled into the kitchen. We're all stood around having a cup of tea. She crawled into the kitchen, drank out dog bowl in front of the social workers. So I'm like, welcome to our house. We do give our children, you know, fresh water, but occasionally the dog bowl's good as well. So, you know, it's
timing.
Oh, it was funny. I tell lots of people that story, because I just think, do you know what? That's life, isn't it? That's what happens. And no one's perfect. There is no such thing as being perfect. But, you know, I think sometimes we get this image in our head that we have to be like the Pinterest mum, or the you know, Out of Country Living magazine, or something like that. And actually that's not life. It is muddy and dirty, and food splattered up the wall with your kids when you're weaning them, you know, all of those sorts of things. It is that, but it's also the other side of that, is it is rewarding, and it is loving, and that's the good bits of it. And yeah, our community is about helping everyone sort of enjoy those good bits, and those other bits we can help along the way.
That's amazing. So tell me a little bit more about a bit about why you're so passionate about it. I mean, I know you did explain a little bit about the journey, like how you got from,
Yeah.
wandering through the teaching, but more about like your connection to it.
I
Like,
think
why does it matter so much to you? Because, everyone can, not everyone, but a lot of people will resonate and relate to what it is that you're saying, but you actually, you're passionate about it enough to open the Facebook group and to be a parenting
yeah.
coach. Like, where's that passion from?
I think it comes back from, when we were kids, and I sit here and go, my mum was this, my mum was that. She did the best that she could do in the circumstances that she found herself in. And it was really difficult for her for lots of reasons. She had her own personal reasons, and also being left. My dad died when I was 10, left her with 4 children. My oldest brother was 12, then myself, then 2 younger. The youngest was 4. So she had, 4 kids. And I mean, I don't even begin to imagine how you would cope with that. My dad had been sick for about 18 months and then he died. And it was just, how do you cope? And she didn't. In lots of ways, she didn't. She found it really difficult. And I think she found it very difficult with me. And she has sort of admitted this as well. She found it very difficult with me because she found it really difficult to sort of bond with me and have a relationship. So I was sort of, my brothers always laugh and go, yeah, you were the trailblazer. You were the one that always got in trouble and paved the way for us to sort of get away with things. So I think had mum had the opportunity to sit and talk to somebody and talk about maybe things that I did that triggered her, because that's quite, there's quite possibly lots of stuff that I did growing up that gave her such, sort of emotional responses that maybe she wasn't even aware about. Had she had that, I think we probably would have had a much better relationship, and I would have had that parent that I could have spoken to and talked about, and not actually had to rely on second, third or fourth hand information. I could have that confident, have that person that she loved me and she cared about me, and I can sit here and say all my basic needs were met. I never went hungry, I never went without food, I never went without a roof over my head. But the arguing and the fighting and the disconnect that we had, I think had we been able to find a way, or someone been able to help us, it would have made my teenage years a lot less stressful, and I probably would have focused more at school. I probably wouldn't have been looking for, there's a song, I think it's a country song, looking for love in all the wrong places. I think I know what it's like to be the child without the parent that you can have that relationship with. So I sort of look at, if I can help, even if I can help one person and change that cycle and be able to say, our kids aren't naughty. No one's born naughty. No one's born, well, I think, I think no one's really born evil or anything like that. And I think if us as adults are able to understand ourselves, and then we can respond to and interact with our children better. And I think that's probably where I'm sort of coming from, is that had all of those things in mum's background and her life, if she'd been able to understand them and address them and understand how they impacted her, then I probably wouldn't have had those years of feeling very much that I was very much out in the wilderness on my own. And it's kind of a lonely place to be as a teenager and as a young adult. to sort of sit there and feel like, and this is very much how I felt, and I'm sure if I had a conversation with her, I don't even know if she even would realize I felt like this, but you know, it's quite a lonely place to be, of think that there's actually no one there that you can turn around to. And you'd sort of, I have, you know, quite a few friends who would be like, oh, you know, my mum's amazing, I can tell her this, I can tell her that, and I never had that. And it was really, you know, that when I became a parent myself, even like with the fostering, because I class that as, you know, being a parent, I made sure that was my one thing, was that these kids knew that it didn't matter what they had to tell me, we could work through it together and we would come through it together. You know, there is nothing on this earth, even with my daughter now, I keep saying to her, there is nothing you can't tell me, because I would hate her to think that she could never have that conversation with me. You know, she's 7 now, so okay, the things that she tells me about, they're big in her life now. But if I listen now and I connect with her now, when she's 15, 16, she can have those conversations with me and not be shimmying down the drain pipe, you know, like, what was the name out of Greece? I can't think, Rizzo, going down the drain pipe and stuff like that, you know, yeah. You know, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's my why. And it's about empowering parents to empower their children, because then they become the next generation and it becomes this cycle of empowerment, and not what we seem to see in society at the moment, which is this disempowerment. And if we can actually change that, then I think, you know, we have a better society all around. So that's my driving force to it, is that, you know, I guess I'm a big advocate for children. I always have been a big advocate for children. And if that means, you know, working with and supporting parents so they understand them, then, you know, it always comes from a good place. It's never a place of judgment for me.
Amazing. Is this also, like, I just feel that you could have gone down so many paths, and not necessarily good paths, but you somehow managed to take, you know, the troubled like teen years and then turn it around. And I mean, because of this, why, I'm assuming, but was there something else, like, that helped you stay, you know, find this path, or, you know?
I think I've always been incredibly lucky, if that's the right word to use. I did have, you know, I had extended family members like aunties and that who were very good at sort of grabbing me by the shoulders and steering me round and listening to me. I have an auntie that's sort of 11 years older than me, so she was more like a big sister in a lot of ways. But I think also with my friends, I've got there's quite a few friends whose parents almost took me in and helped me and gave me that place. So I think I was able to, I knew what I wanted. I knew that I wanted to feel loved and secure. And I guess that's, you know, I guess I was lucky to have found those people in my life. We came from, you know, quite a religious background. So there was quite a lot of community support at the time, because we were into like youth groups and that. So there was a lot of people that I could lean on to. And I guess I'm quite self-aware. I've always been quite self-aware about how I feel and what makes me feel that way. And so I guess that for me gave me the difference between, I could have gone down the path. I mean, I had a friend whose parents split up, and it wasn't particularly nice. And she went down the path of, you know, substance abuse and sort of running away and living in squats and things like that. She's turned her life around now, but I don't think she didn't have that support network that I had. And I think I was really lucky in that regard. And I can see those, you know, I literally probably was standing at that crossroad one day and just happened to have the right person come across at the right time, whether it was my auntie or friends, parents, or whoever. that helped steer me along the way. So I could have, you know, even with those people in my life, there could have been a time where I turned around and I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to listen to any of you. And I do think part of that is about being a teenager as well, that bit being rebellious. But I think it was that need in me that I just wanted to feel that love, that in some respects, I probably, you know, with boyfriends and things like that, stayed in relationships way too long, and should have probably run for the hills quite a number of months or years sooner. But yeah, I think that I was quite lucky in that regard, that I had those people at the right points in my life that helped me. So yeah, otherwise I guess it could have been very, very different in that sense.
I guess so. Community or support system, feeling seen and heard. Wow, so like the power of it is so underestimated.
Yeah.
And
I
what
think that's
go on.
sorry. I was just going to say, I think that's it, that feeling seen and feeling heard was very much like, particularly my auntie, made all the difference in that, because there wasn't that judgment. I could tell her stuff. I'm pretty sure she was on the phone telling mum loads of things, you know. I'm not silly in that, you know. Now looking back at it thinking, oh, you know, she's probably given too much away. But it was that someone actually listened to me, and someone heard me, and someone was going, you know what, it's okay, and we can get through this, and we can do this, and we can, you know. Or there were times where she'd say to me, oh, that was a bit stupid, wasn't it? And I go, yeah, probably shouldn't have done that, you know. So although she wasn't judgmental about it, she also wasn't going to let me fall, I guess. So, you know, having that right support, and as I say, being seen and heard, it's such an incredible, if you feel that someone is there listening to you, then it just fills you with, I guess, more confidence and more and to want to maybe do things in a different way. That's the way I kind of feel that it's been for me anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you. It just reminded me. It's a little bit off topic, but yesterday I felt very unseen and unheard, and I had a rough morning. I was very triggered, and then I reminded myself that I have me now, and I can see me, and I can hear me, and that can also be enough now as an adult. As a child, you need to be seen and heard, like 100%. But part of my work with the self-healing is being that person for yourself. I do a lot of reparenting to yourself. So like you coach parents on how to parent their kids, and I focus on how to parent yourself, how to reparent yourself.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of alignment there. But I was going to ask you what, with regards to the parenting, is there like, what are some really effective tools that you found that are really helpful, or what specific issues maybe are quite common with parenting, if there's, you know, any insights there?
I think I will always advocate to parents open and honest communication with your kids, because if you're talking, then it's you know, and that's easier said than done, and I completely get that. And often I talk with parents about behaviour as a need that's not met. So, you know, so take for example, I was talking in my Facebook group the other day about end of day meltdowns at school. So, you know, I say little kids, but teenagers have them as well. Of that, children have been at school all day, and they've been compliant, and they've been listening, and they've been learning, and they've been doing all these things, and making sure they're following all the rules, and making sure they're in the right place at the right time, and making sure they've got the right, you know, particularly for teenagers, the right book, the right pencil, the right this, the right that. And then they come out of school and they see you and they have this complete meltdown because you're their safe place. And they just think, oh, you know, actually all of that energy I've put in for that day, I now need to release it. So I was talking with parents about that's quite typical behavior, you know, that, you know, you will get that in some shape or form, whether it's at the school gate or whether it's in the car on the way home or whether it's half an hour after you've come through the door. You know, kids will do that. But it's what that sort of triggers in you, and it's being aware of those things of like, you know, is my child hungry? Is my child tired? Does my child just need time to decompress? So I talk a lot with parents about that. You know, we want to know, I miss my daughter. Yes, she was here for 6 months in lockdown, and I'd be like, oh, it'd be nice to sit in the lounge room and not have to watch Pokemon. That'd be lovely. But actually, I do miss her. And I want to know about her day, but actually she needs that time. Like you think about us when we've been working all day, we need that time to sort of flick that stuff out of our head, don't we? So it's about, you know, learning to give our children space as well, and allowing them to come to us when they're ready to. I think sometimes parents find that difficult, giving children their space, because we love them and we want to hear about their day. So there's things like that. There's understanding, like I said, you know, triggers, what actually is the response that we get. So if our child says no to us and we get angry about that, what is that actually, what is the reason behind that? You know, why are we getting so annoyed about that? So I talk a lot with parents about that self-awareness as well, about, okay, well, when you were a kid and your parents said this to you, how did that make you feel? And then we kind of start to join the dots, you know, of like, oh, okay, now can you see where that's coming from there? So there's all manner of topics, but as I said, I would always advocate that open and honest conversation with your children, and, you know, asking them open-ended questions. So questions like that start with who, what, where, when, and how. So you don't get good, bad, yes, no kind of answers. You know, you might get a few more words than that. And yeah, and also just allowing them to be themselves, giving them the opportunity to. Oh, I had this in the summer with my daughter, and as I say, I always encourage her to talk to me. And she said to me, so she has a pony, and we'd been at pony club camp, and I'm a very risk adverse person. I'm not very, you know, you're not going to get me bungee jumping or scaling walls or anything like that. So it is a little bit amusing that I stick my child on a pony. However, it was all lovely and great when she was on the lead rein, but now she wants to do it on her own. And we had a conversation, and she said to me, Mummy, you do know that I'm grown up now. And I was like, well, you're 7. You're not really a grown up. She's like, but you do realise I'm not a baby anymore. I'm like, yeah, but you are my baby. She's like, yes, but I can do things for myself. And I just feel that you don't trust me to do stuff and trust me to be safe. And I was like, oh, I didn't realize I made you feel like that. I don't want to make you feel like that. I want you to be confident, and I want you to be, you know, experience things. I said, but I am your mummy. And I said, and I will always be worried about you. I said, I will always not want, you know, I don't want you to get hurt or stuff. I said, but I actually see where you're coming from. So I said, so we struck up a deal, and I said to her, right, okay, I will be less like in the arena with you. I said, but if there's a situation that I'm not happy about because I feel that it's dangerous, I said, then she said, that's absolutely fine. So I ended up letting her off the lead rein, and she had this lesson, show jumping. They were going over little poles and stuff. And honestly, she sat so tall, and the smile on her face, and I was almost throwing up over the side of the arena. I was so nervous about the whole thing. But if we don't allow our children to have these experiences, then we actually stop their growth and development, you know, their ability to make calculated risks and their ability to keep themselves safe. So I get it. I completely get it. We want to keep our kids safe, but at the same time, we've got to give them those opportunities. And I think this, again, is when I'm talking with parents, is that it's really difficult, because we look at the world that we live in and all we see as adults is all these risks, but all they see is opportunity, that they could go and do these things and experience these things. So it's finding that middle happy ground with the pair of you, that you're happy and also age appropriate.
Yeah, I think it is also, it's quite interesting how, as a parent and as an adult, when we see everything as risks, the way that we view or interpret, or the way, the way we say we love them, we need to keep them safe, we need to protect them, but the way it's interpreted or translated on the child's end is they don't trust me, or they're stopping me, that's unfair. What have I done? Have I done something wrong that they're not letting me do this? So it's very interesting how it's like a different language, like the parents speaking, I love you, this is how I love you, this is, this is how I show love, and then the child is saying, I don't feel loved, potentially, not in what you've said, but
No.
I very much relate to the story, but a little bit, I take it a bit further, like, as I remember as a young teen, I wasn't given any independence, any freedom. It was, you're not allowed this, you're not allowed that, you're not allowed this, no, and it was out of fear. They were trying to keep me in a cotton wool ball because they loved me so much. They didn't want to, and I didn't see it as love. I didn't feel it as love. I was like, they don't like me or something, because they're not letting me do anything. They're not letting me go out with my friends. They're not letting me, go to the mall on the bus with my friends. They're not letting me go out to like nothing.
Yeah.
And I thought I was being punished.
But that's it, isn't it? And the thing, I think one of the hardest things as a parent is letting go and knowing when the right time to let go is, because our children, as they get older, they naturally want more independence. They naturally want, to show you that they're responsible. And the only way they can show you that they're responsible is for you to give them the opportunity to be responsible. And it's really difficult, isn't it? Because yes, we had a very sort of similar we couldn't do this and we couldn't do that, and again, it was from a place of fear. Mum had lost dad, and she obviously didn't want to go through that with us kids, and I get that, but actually, all it did is make me a very nervy person for a long time, and very worried about my own choices and if I was making the right thing, and the inability to make a decision, because I wasn't given the opportunity to do that and experience that. But it's so needed. And the more we try and hold on to our kids, the more they will rebel, and they will shimmy down the drain pipe, and they will end up going to the parties and doing all the things that you fear, because you are suffocating them. Obviously, I'm not advocating, let them go and do this, that, and everything else. You've got to decide what's right for you and your children.
But with boundaries. And
Exactly.
I had a friend, her parents, I think, did it really well. They would let her go out to the party, and they would say, I will come and pick you up from the club or whatever at 4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. And because she respected them trusting her, she wouldn't do the drugs, and she wouldn't get absolutely shit-faced, because no, my parents are coming to get me at 4 in the morning. They trust me to come out, so I'm gonna,
exactly,
I'm gonna be responsible.
And
I want to prove to them.
It's those respectful boundaries, isn't it? It's like, okay, you want to go to a party, that's absolutely great. You're 17, 18, whatever, you want to go to this party. We need to get up for work in the morning. Let's meet in the middle. Let's have these conversations and talk about what is, okay for us, what's okay for you. And you're not always going to agree, but if you can find a common place, it makes it so much easier, because you're not fighting all the time. And I think that's it. That's the exhausting bit with all of this, is that sometimes, without knowing, you put yourself in a position where you can't back down, because you've drawn that line in the sand, and you're saying to your kids, no, 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 no. And then if you do back down, people worry about losing face and worry about losing respect. And then it just becomes this massive battle, and it just then becomes so exhausting, because something that probably could have been resolved in 10 minutes drags on, for days or weeks or years sometimes, so it is having those boundaries and allowing your children to be, responsible and independent. And it is hard. It's so hard, especially, I don't know, I do have this conversation with my husband, and I'm sure he feels the same as me. But sometimes I think, oh my God, I carried this child for 9 months and I kept her safe for 9 months. And now she's out in the real world. I'm a bit like, oh, if only I could keep her safe. I think it's a natural thing to want to keep our kids safe, but we have to allow them to go out. And that's, and I think that's it. I think it's just, when I think back to my family, and I think about that restriction in freedom, it was quite a normal progression, because my grandparents lived through the Second World War in Europe, and so they had that real fear in them. So that fear then was passed down to their children. That was then passed down to us. So it's, so I can see where, as an adult now looking back on it, I can absolutely see where it's come from.
Be more compassionate about and empathetic about where it's coming from. 100%.
Exactly. But it's knowing how to break those cycles as well. And I think that's when I'm like coaching parents or having workshops or different things that I do. It's about breaking stuff down and looking at the pieces of the jigsaw and making a different picture, taking those pieces and making a different picture.
I mean, we're going to have to wrap up in a minute. I just wanted to say that I do think that it's quite counterintuitive perhaps, but the best way to keep your children safe is to prepare them and give them the tools that they can keep themselves safe, like later on down the line, gradually kind of progressively teach them, guide them, but at the end of the day, like my parents, they wanted so bad to keep me safe. And then by the time I got to 18, I didn't even get to 18. I left home at 17 because I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
And then I was just so unsafe because I had no idea how to keep myself safe, because I hadn't been given an opportunity to learn. And I think it's really, essentially, it can have the opposite effect. It can be really damaging and detrimental if you're overprotective, because
absolutely,
you're stopping your child from learning how to protect himself, which is crucial.
Exactly. And learning to listen to, because we all get a vibe, right? So we all get, this might be too woo-woo for some people, but there's vibes. People send off vibes, and they either resonate high, like, they match with you, or they resonate low. And it's knowing who are the safe people to go to as well. And if you haven't had that opportunity to work out, or actually they might have looked all right, but actually they're a bit weird, and hang around them. Those people, on the other hand, and knowing who to attract yourself to. We used to have this with mum when we were sort of like 16, 17, my older brother and I, and we'd say to her about like alcohol, for example. And we'd always say to us, my mum's Italian, we'd always say, yeah, but if we were in Italy, we'd have like, table wine on the table and all this sort of stuff. And, I'm not advocating like underage drinking, but it was that you turned 18, you could go out to the pub, and it's like, well, hey, I'm going to have, everything, top shelf, bottom shelf, mix it all together, and inevitably you then become incredibly ill, So it is that thing about giving your children the opportunity to have those risks in a safe environment, with you being there to be able to pick them up and help them. Otherwise, when they're left out into the big wide world, it can be very dangerous. So yeah.
Yes.
All
right.
Well, there you go.
I love what you do.
Thank you.
I'm a huge fan. Please send me any and all of your links, including your Facebook group as well. I'll stick it in the description box, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you very much, and thank you for inviting me to chat. It's been lovely.
Pleasure. Thank you for your time and for sharing your story.
Okay.
Thank you, Jo.
No worries, Emily. Speak to you soon.
Speak soon.
Bye.